Hello, hello. Does everyone hear me out there? Can everyone see me? Dope. Well, welcome everyone. Maybe some of you have seen some of my videos or have watched me speak live. This is a little bit more nerve wracking. Oh, what's up, Dan? Um, because I've never done a live stream before, so bear with me. I keep forgetting that you guys are all out there, so maybe that's why I'm a little nervous about it, but we're going to have a good time. Obviously, I want to thank Max and everyone at, over at 343 Labs for having me. This is awesome. I've known Max and some of the guys that teach over there for a while. We've worked at Dubspot together, and you guys should definitely click on their YouTube. They're putting out great videos. Their Instagram, I mean, they're definitely on the cutting edge of production education and mixing education and everything. So I'm just happy that to be a part of what they're doing, and thank you for having me. So today, I am going to be breaking down. I had a few options, and I decided to go with a pop record. The reason I decided to do a pop record was because I really wanted to focus a lot on vocals, the mindset of mixing a pop record, and the fact that I am completely in the box. I have been completely in the box now for about, I don't know, probably close to 10 years now. I have jumped back and forth a couple times. I do have some toys here. I'm looking at them now, my summing box and back CQ, but I just keep going back to my in the box mixes. I spent a lot of time learning about, just being able to maximize my workflow within the box, and also understanding, the headroom inside the box and how to really push my plugins. And once I got all that, I was pretty much sold on it. And of course, the convenience of it is that I can take my work anywhere I want to go, and that's a lot of it. So the one thing I do want to say is there's going to be a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to answer a lot of them, but I'm definitely more into the interactive. So I do want people to ask away. I'm going to stop. I'm going to answer some questions. Thomas from 343 Labs will be sort of trying to funnel some questions to me as well that maybe I should look at. I'm not going to be looking at the screen the whole time, but so just ask away. I want to make this as fun as possible, and this is going to be Pro Tools, as you can see. I won't be speaking while the song is playing or if I'm demonstrating something. I found it that it's probably more annoying, so I will be stopping and starting frequently. And the first thing that I want to do is tell you who the artist is. The artist is a very talented artist that I've been working with now for 2 years. We met when she was over on RCA Records. Her name is Stella Cole, and I wanted to do this song for many reasons. One, I've mixed quite a few records for her. And first off, shout out to Dave Dalquist, who produced the record. You follow him on Instagram, Kill Dave. Super, super, super talented guy. I've known him for a while. Dave's now in LA. And also Steve Sparrow, who manages Stella. They're giving me the green light to go ahead and use this. But the reason I chose this record is because it's a perfect example of why a record, what makes my job easy. And I'm not just going to talk about the mixing aspect of it, but the communication with the parties that are involved in the song. So whether it's the producer, the manager, there's the conversations are important. And one of the reasons it's important is because getting the files correct to me as the mixer is extremely important. And the prepping of the song is really, really, really important. If the files come in correctly and the song gets prepped, whether it's myself or my assistant Matt, then the mix becomes easier. And of course, if the song is great, the sounds are great, the arrangement is great, the recording is great, then everything kind of falls into place. And this is a great example of that. I mean, we worked really hard on the mix. Dave and I think we got it on there was like 2 small rounds of changes. It was actually not bad. And according to Dave, I think one of the things he said, and he's probably watching now, is that was the best first round he's gotten. So that's cool. And my belief is when you're working with a producer and the artist and producer and everyone involved has been sitting with this song for a lot longer than you have to respect that. And the way that I do my mixing now, the last couple of years, is quite different than the way that I started doing it, 15 years ago. Hold on one second. Does it matter if I do not? Oh, sorry. That's a question for courses. There's just so much on the screen right now. Where was I going with this? Anyway, so let's just jump right into it. But again, in order for a good mix to happen, you have to have a great song, great sound, great arrangement. You're not recreating the wheel. My job is really to enhance what they have already. And Dave is such a dope producer, and I really love the rough mix, and I was able to take the rough mix and just make it that much better. And a lot of the conversation, one thing I do want to talk on is, like, someone's going to ask me, like, what if they give you, what do you do about reverbs that were used in the rough? And that's going to be a question. The hiss? I have no idea. It could be one of my plugins because it's cranking right now. So that's probably what it is. Or the mic. I have no idea. I don't know. We'll just say that it's analog. It's analog sound. I'm losing train of thought here, but yeah. So the reverb. So I always have them print the reverbs as a reverb return. This way, like, for instance, if there's like the lead, I always ask for the lead reverb separately than the backgrounds. So this way I can keep it, and I have the option to turn it down or up, play with the volume, frequencies, and whatnot. The other thing is, what's that? Let's try doing it. So I like the reason I do that is because I can also add reverb on top of it. I could also decide to use another effect that's, if they're using a plate, maybe I have a better plate. I don't know. And this way, when I'm EQing the vocal, if you print with the reverb on the vocal itself, then the EQ is going to affect the sound of the verb, and I'm just not into that. So that's a very key point for me when I'm receiving files. So keep that in mind. Let's just jump into it. You guys will notice that I have a color scheme going here. It's a pretty large session. It's pretty large. So just so you guys see, like, anything here, brown is bass, and everything goes to a bus that's grouped. All the yellows, the drums, going to a drum bus. Then I have a parallel drum bus. This is percussion, separate. Guitar, green. This is horns. This is a good question. I have no idea what this is. It's probably a mellotron. Strings, and the blue is effects. And then what I like to do is if I use effects like reverbs, I like to separate it to have reverbs just for the instrumental and reverbs just for the vocals. And the reason I do that is because later on when I'm printing passes, it's easier for me not to get not to just start mixing up, like if a snare's going to the same reverb as a vocal. I like to have control of those things separately, and I've gotten burned in the past. Like compression. I'll get to that. I print with compression a lot when I'm recording vocals, when I used to record vocals. Last time I think I recorded was last November in France. Okay, so, and then, so what I do is I have a master fader, right, which everything is going to. You notice that it's called print bus, because what this is an aux with all my effects that is I'm printing with. It's my master section, and that's going into a print track here, and I print directly. And then the monitor is to the right of that. That's feeding the monitor. And why I have a monitor is because I'm using the SonarWorks plugin, which right now it's set to headphones so that you guys aren't hearing it, and I'm listening through the headphones. But this is actually an individualized it's an individualized file for these headphones that I have on right now. They sent it to me, and it makes a big difference than just the average headphones that they have. Like if you just buy a pair of these and then just look at the files, there's a big difference to that. So I want to make that clear. Hold on. Is your noise? I want to make sure there's not noise lean to your audio. Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, we checked the stream. It should be cool. So, yeah, so then to the right of all the master is all my vocals. And one thing I do want to say, these two tracks that are highlighted, this is every bus is going to this instrumental fader. So if I mute this, you'll just hear a cappella, and all my vocals are going to my all vocals. It's a little bit extensive, but it works for me, and it makes a lot of sense. This way, when I get to the 10th hour, whatever of a mix, then I can, if I need to, I don't have to think about what's feeding what. I could just mute instrumental vocals and, do instrumental and a cappella passes without thinking about it. Anyway, let's listen to the record and enjoy it, guys. I'm going to play it down so you guys can get a feel for it. Yeah, I don't know about the white noise. It might be something with the stream. Yeah, I don't know, guys. It might be. I'm muting like, yeah, it has to be with the stream. Sorry about that. Here we go.
First we'd break up, then we'd make up. Took a breaking point to wake up. Now I'm putting on my makeup, clear the room. Left you screaming in the kitchen. Second I turned the ignition. Sped away from all your bitching. Fuck you too. Tick tock, I've been waiting for this. Tick tock, you ain't ready for this. I see you calling on my phone. If you miss me, buy a ticket to my show. Oh, I'm finally here. Start the applause. Let's make it louder. This one's for the moment of the hour. Blood, sweat, and tears. I suffer the chorus. So let's make it louder. This one's for the moment of the hour. Now I'm off your try to come back, boy, you'll regret that. Bet that you never will forget that. Bet you thought that I would come back, boy. You never thought I'd make a comeback, boy. And if you ever try to come back, boy, you'll regret that. Bet that you never will forget that. I'm finally here. Start the applause. Let's make it louder. This one's for the moment of the hour. Blood, sweat, and tears. I fell for the chorus. So let's make it louder. This one's for the moment of the hour.
All right. So I think I found out what it is. Can you guys hear me? Is that good now? I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you. That's not the master either, so you're not hearing the mastered. Yeah. Haha. Anyway, great. I'm glad that sounds better. Let's move on. So, the first thing that I do want to talk about is I have a very there's something in Pro Tools needs a dB boost now. All right. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. This is new for me. How's that? Good? Yeah. Cool? Great. Thanks, guys. What's up, AJ? So the one thing I do want to talk about real quick is what I use on Pro Tools is I use Heat. And maybe I should bypass that. Okay. So Heat is a overall console emulation that I've been using for years, and I put that on right from the beginning. And if you guys notice, right, that everything here, the volumes are kind of all relative, because when I receive the files from the producer, if all the faders are at 0, their files should sound like their rough mix. That is the rule of thumb for me. It usually does. Give or take, they put a limiter on the master or something like that. But either way, that's fine. But one thing that I do is once you start adding elements to it, like a plugin like EQ or something, you're boosting frequencies or cutting it, and that's why you're starting to see some volume changes here. But one thing I always do when I start, and we're going to start off, is I start with the bass and I start with the drums right away. So I'm going to mute everything else, and we're just going to start with the bass and drums so you guys can hear it. We'll keep this in here, and we'll mute the vocals. So go right to the pre-chorus. So when the mix starts, I usually start with the bass and the drums, and I try to get the kick and the bass, the kick and the 808 in this instance, to try to really make sure that they're not taking up too much space and clashing with each other. And again, people say like, what did you do to the 808 or the kick? I mean, honestly, the sounds were amazing, and I'll bypass things, but you got to understand it's really hard for me to bypass individual plugins in this instance. The reason, because the heat has something to do with it. I start with master processing early on in my mix. I usually start with an ATR 102 right away on the master. So it's going to be a little bit different and tricky to get around, but you'll get the idea. So let's start with the, we'll go right to the chorus. Can you guys hear me now? Oh, weird. Okay. So I automated the Helios, and you'll see that it just comes in on one part, but this is with and now I added this Ibanez. I used to have this. I actually have this box from when I was like 12. But it's cool. It's distortion. So you guys want to know why it sounds good on the speakers, like small speakers, that's why. I like pushing distortion. I love distortion. A lot of my in-the-box mixing has a lot to do with saturation. I think the mic is on now, right? Sorry, that's what happens when you have an extensive, crazy setup here. So now the other last piece of this is this transient designer. I'm just adding some attack to make it pop through a little bit, right? So here you go. And then I put these sticks in early, and I'm aggressively yeah, I know. I had it on record on purpose so it cuts out when the music plays, but I'll leave it on input monitor. I'll do it right now. Man, you guys are giving me a lot of heat. I'm a mix engineer, god damn it. I don't record anymore. All right, so here you go. You could hear that middle one is really the predominant one. And I'm boosting. I mean, you can hear it. That's without it. I love you guys too. All right, so you're hearing that. I don't know, man. I come from like 90s boom bap hip hop. That's my background. And my, just my love of music comes from that. So I love those old Tribe records where you're smacking the snare, the snare's hitting your chest and the kick is hitting your chest. Big shout out to the OG Bob Power, for influencing a bunch of us New York cats, when we were coming up. He's the godfather of all of it. So I always try to recreate that. I like my snares and claps and rim shots like really, really loud and in your face. And on the drum bus, let's take a look at the drum bus while we're here. Um, let me go to the post chorus. Dave had a loop in here. I have an EQP1A, and this is my favorite saturator on the freaking planet. I am obsessed with Sound Toys plugins. I'm obsessed with their plugins, and I'm obsessed with the people that work there and have worked there. And I love their stuff, so I always use this. So this is the loop without it. And let me engage the plugins. And then we have a kick in there. So there's a kick without plugins. I didn't do anything with this. I have no idea. It just has a sound. Maybe I started to. This guy came in again. And you see I took out some low, right? Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Trevor. So if you notice, I'm actually high passing some of the lows. If you guys click on option on low cut, you can actually see the frequency it's cutting out. There's a little plug for you. And I'm actually doing it on wet dry, so you can see that it's I'm blending the wet and dry signal here. And then on top of that, I'm added another transient designer. I'm at the transient designers to me. I think they turn the song quite more aggressive. And this song, when the post chorus hits, I thought it was really aggressive and great, and I loved it. So I wanted to really accentuate those parts in the drums. So I know I'm also a recording engineer. I'm making jokes here. Sound Toys already changed the game. They're one of the only companies. Their stuff isn't like anything else. And so let's go to the bus now. You guys see that. I love Plug-in Alliance stuff too. Their stuff is the shit. So here is the black box. I started with a preset. I'm not afraid to use presets or to try them. They don't always work. I'm not a preset guy. They just happen to work for this. And then I tweaked it because it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes you'll see I do mess around with the wet dry. On this one I did not. And then I have the Shadow Hills. I'm going to mute the parallel chain real quick, and I'm going to mute the bus, and this was the drums. So it's a bit of a, you hear it without. Gives it a little bit more life. And here's the parallel chain. Hear the aggression in that? So I'm going to answer that question because that's a really, yes, I lived in Harlem for over 10 years. Why wouldn't, so the reason I didn't start with the vocal is because I'm a New Yorker, so we pretty much hear drums and bass first. So I don't know, that's probably the best answer I can give you. However, once I get the bass and the drums right, the vocal comes in right away, and it still help because really the vocal isn't going to be focused on the low frequency information. It's going to be on the maybe sometimes low mids, the mids and the highs. So that's why I'm doing that's why usually every mix is the same thing. I start in that same pattern. Once in a while, the vocal, I just happen to hear the vocal first, and I'll put it up. But the thing is, it's really hard for me to mix and feel the what the vocal should be without the groove underneath it. And that's just being, I don't know, that's just me. But there's no right or wrong way. I know there's so many people that do start with vocals. Again, just remember that, like, mixing is an expression and there's no rules to it. Like, you can do whatever you can do it the way that you want, as long as you the feel comes out right. That's all that matters at the end. So this is just my take on mixing. How would a recording engineer take on a West Coast? I don't know what that means. Sorry. So let's bring in the vocal. I'll go to verse 2 just so you guys can hear it. So here's the vocal, and the vocal's interesting, so I'll definitely talk about it.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone. Yeah, this is my moment, this is my turn. You should make way, don't wanna get hurt, no. Off your medication, every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone. Yeah, this is my moment, this is my.
And you can hear that a lot of the background instruments weren't in this verse, so it was really easy to bring in the vocal early. But let's talk about the vocal. The vocal was recorded really well. Dave did a great job. I know a lot of the people that he surrounds himself with who are also good friends of mine. So when you're in good company of just talented people, usually the work you do reflects that. And so Stella's vocal, I'll play it dry. Now, once I solo, if you guys look over here, these blue tracks right here, these are all the printed reverbs that I told them to give me, right? So if I solo these,
Off your medication.
I don't think there's anything there. There's nothing on that. I think I created my own reverb for the, yeah, there's.
Every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone. Yeah, this is my moment, this is my turn. You should make way, don't wanna get hurt, no.
So the lead's got an effect here. So that's the effect, and the reason I kept it here is because it was the only effect on the lead, and I wanted this effect return to feed the lead vocal bus. So if I just mute the lead vocal bus for, let's say, a TV track, which is the entire song minus the lead vocal. So if a performer needs to perform on a TV show that they can't bring a full band, that's the reason I do that. So this is the effect. I ended up EQing it a little bit, just rolling out some of the lows. The vocal is pretty simple here. This is what the vocal sounded like dry.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone.
I just want you guys to understand something. Most of your track that's the way the tracks were given to me. Prince George in the house. The reason it was given to me this way, hold on one second. Let me get this straight here. I want to point something out real quick. I'm going to mute bypass all the plugins on the master so you guys can hear the difference in the vocal.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration.
That's without heat. This is dry.
Reputation since you're gone. Yeah. This is my moment, this is my turn. You should make way, don't wanna get hurt.
Now let's put the plugins in. little SSL here.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone. Yeah, this is my moment, this is my turn. You should make way.
And then this is, I don't use this one often anymore. I used to use this a lot, the Massenburg. It's great plugin.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration.
And then you add the effect.
Off your medication, every day's a celebration. Got a brand new reputation since you're gone. Yeah, this is my moment, this is my turn. You should make way, don't wanna get hurt, no. Off your medication.
So that's pretty much the basics of how I start the mix. Generally with master bus processing, because this does a lot of heavy lifting for me. Hold on, I'm trying to run through some of these. Oh God, a well-recorded vocal just sounds great. Like there's not much to do. If you notice, there wasn't much to do. I've had vocals where, you might, if you're in a good studio, like, try different microphones for different artists. Each artist sounds different on different tracks depending on what frequencies are in the production and whatnot. Same goes with mic pre and compression. But the microphone for this specific song, I don't know what it was. So I would, Dave, if you're on here, I don't know if there's so many people. It'd be great if you can just post that. But I start right away. So on this song, I started off with the ATR 102, and the SSL. I love the SSL. I have a hardware literally right here where I'm pointing. I just don't use it anymore. But it looks good on my desk. And I started just with this on the master and this on the master. If you guys notice, I do have a limiter on this. This is just for the client. I don't send it. I send mastering always with the limiter, so Ricardo, my mastering engineer, can hear what the client's used to, and then his job is just to beat that, and he absolutely does. Settings on the ATR 102, honestly, it depends on the song. I switch through different. I keep it. The only thing I do change is I take the noise off. It makes a difference. But I usually start with the 456 plus 6 half-inch at 30 IPS. It defaults at 15 IPS when you open this. Anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's inches per second. That's how fast the tape is going. I do know how to align a tape machine, believe it or not. I'm used to that sound. I've known that sound. I remember as an assistant hearing that sound, so it's just it's familiar to me, and that's what I use. Oh yeah, Ricardo. Hey, Rick. So anyway, so that's what I start with. As far as someone just said, I'm jumping around. I'm sorry. So the lead vocals, different sections. Why there's so many? That's the only difference. I like to have control. If you start at verse 1.
First we'd break up, then we'd make up.
This, and then
Tick tock, I'm waiting.
I'll go right to the pre-chorus so you can hear that one. So what I did, if you notice, the first 3 plugins are identical. It was probably the same, but what I did was I added on this one the CLA, and I tweaked it. I tweaked it myself just to add a little bit of difference between. Just to make the song a little bit more exciting as it's building into the drop. And I used the CLA. I didn't do anything crazy. I used this the Spank, more like a parallel thing. You notice I'm bringing the output down. I'm using a tight room, but it's very low. A slap delay and a little bit of stereo. I'll solo it so you guys can hear.
Tick tock, I've been waiting for this. Tick tock, you ain't ready for this. I see you calling on my phone. If you miss me, buy a ticket to my show. Oh, tick tock, I've been waiting for this. Tick tock, you ain't ready for this. I see you calling on my phone.
The other reason I did that also and added this CLA is also to make it blend a little bit better with the background vocals. So there's a few background.
Tick tock, I've been waiting for this. Tick tock.
And I'm using on this SSL. This is what it sounded like before.
Tick tock.
Without reverb.
Tick tock. Tick tock.
If I didn't EQ it.
Tick tock, I've been.
Let's add it, and this is what it sounds like with it.
Tick tock. Tick tock. I see you calling on my phone.
And reverb is a medium haul. I'm going to assume that it's Valhalla. Vintage verb. It's my own thing. I love the I remember the Lexicon 300. I turned down the decay. Probably did a high cut on this. Changed the diffusion. I can't remember exactly. I love the 70s color on this. You know, and that's really it. And this is what it sounds like with it. One thing I do want to hold on. Let me just look. Wow, that's the CLA is dope. What's the price of it? Without touching the knobs. Do you add reverb to the vocal trim? Do you send to a vocal? No. Usually to a reverb, like an effects reverb, just so I can control how much is feeding in, and if I can make the vocals cohesive, I could add other vocals and stuff like that into it. This is what it sounds like. One thing I do before I jump off here is when I get the reverb and I set it, I usually put the send on 0. I put it in pre-fade, and I just listen to the return, and I mute it. This way, if I want to change the decay or anything, you can actually just hear the reverb. It's going to stay at 178. I can't get it back to 179. Maybe I can type it in. Oh, yeah, I can. Look at that. Whatever. Anyway, it's 178. But you get the idea. So it's for me, it's interesting because even usually I do that a lot. How I get my lead vocal if I use if I create my own reverb, I love to change my reverbs. Like I love it. Usually pre-delay, Dan. I use it for lead vocals to kind of just push it. Just to delay the reverb a little bit, so it's a little bit the dry is a little bit more vocal forward in the mix, and I don't know. Usually it ranges from a 60 milliseconds or more for pre-delay, but usually background vocals I don't use the pre-delay, and if I do, it might be like anywhere between like 10 to 20 seconds, nothing crazy. Anyway, so it's a good tip. Let me go back to where I was so it doesn't sound crazy.
For this tick tock, you ain't ready for this. I see you calling on my phone. If you miss me, buy a ticket to my show. Tick tock.
So this is background vocal.
You ain't ready for this. Buy a ticket to my show.
So some of the things you guys, what is it proper to use, pre or post on buses? Depends what the sound you're going to do. I generally post fader, unless when you turn the fader down, that's feeding the reverb, you still want to hear the return of the effect. So if you want to do something where at the end of the song, you want to, I don't know, off the top, you want to automate if you want to automate the decay, for instance. So let's say I opened up Vintage Verb and I go in here and I want to control the decay and ride that. So what I would do is I have an S3 here that I can ride the vocal down, and as the song is ending, you'll still hear the decay, and I can automate a longer decay, something like that, But if you have it in post fader, that means that when you turn the fader down, it's going to also, you're not going to be feeding anything. Yes, it's going to be, this will be available, Luca. So I hope that made sense. I'm trying to go through with this as quickly as possible because I want to make sure I answer people's questions. Let's go right to the drop. And let me bring the other elements in because they've been out. So let's bring these guys in and I can go through them.
I'm finally here. Start the applause. Let's make it louder. This one's for.
So if you guys notice, there's a mistake that people make a lot, and when I get things as a mix engineer, what they're saying to me is they're always like, yo, man, how did you get the mix to sound fuller and wider? And when I got their mix, it sounded so wide that it actually was phasing, and especially when you put it in mono. And I do spend a lot of time in mono. I'm really big on mixing 50 to 60% in mono. This way you can hear phase issues. Sometimes things are going to be wider, and in mono they're not going to be as apparent. But in general, you can also hear frequencies clashing in mono a lot easier. And when you listen in mono, one of the things is to listen very low as well. And that's just in general when you're mixing. You should be mixing at a conversation level. But if you look at this vocal here, I actually brought in the width, and the reason is because sometimes I will do that, and I can hear it right away. It was bothering me, so I brought it in. And then what it does is instead of everything being stereo, you're able to create a better sound stage by moving things around, even though the producer artist sent it to you fully panned wide. Sometimes it is a sound and you have to make it work, but those are conversations I have with the artist or producer, and I'll explain to them like, hey, I want to try this because I feel like the vocals are phasey. Can we try moving it in? And I'll spread the backgrounds further out and it'll give it a wider sound, however we do it. But really, if the less phasing going on in the track, the fuller the song is going to sound. It's that simple. So you can hear it on here.
I'm finally here. Start the applause. Let's make it louder. This one's for the woman.
Now, the other reason I brought it in is because once the post-chorus comes in, I'm really opening up the stereo image of the actual mix because there's more things that are coming in and there's more instruments coming in, and I want it to sound bigger. Phase can occur when sounds from one speaker canceling out. So yes, good. Sorry, I want to get more into the mixing thing of this rather than like those technical stuff. For when do you go about that show? Good answer. A good question, AJ. What are you listening for when compress? What I'm listening for, and I've been doing less and less compression these days and more parallel compression. I know on this mix I didn't do parallel compression on the vocals. Normally I do parallel processing on the vocal, but with compression, what I'm listening for is if any words or lines or dynamics stick up, and I try to sort of even everything out. That's what I'm trying to do. But you have to be careful because some words were in the lyric and the song were intended to come out a little bit because there's an emotion there. So when I hear over compression, you suck the emotion out of the vocal. That's what I'm listening for. So even when you're recording, do light compression. You know what I mean? Like do a mic test where you scream into the mic and count loud, and then you can set your compression for heavy compression where if it's light, like if they're singing light or lower, it's the compressor won't hit too hard. And generally with a slow attack time and a faster release, you'll accomplish that. But again, it all depends. But for compression, I tend to like less compression. But in rock and roll, I have gone a little bit heavy on compression, but it's a sound that I'm going for. I hope that made sense, AJ. Yo, what's up, Taylor? Long time. Hope you're staying safe. So let's listen to this pre-chorus again and look at the vocals. That's the post. I'm sorry.
I'm finally here. Start the applause.
That one I'm keeping wide, if you hear. And these I bought in, the answers in the chorus, right?
This one's for the woman of the...
And those definitely, when I had them panned left and right, super hard left and right, no question that they were phasing. There was absolutely no question about that. So I bought them in. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with the producer. A lot of it has to do with, as I'm mixing, I'm also adding stereo width on here. So I'm adding like 116 on the Brainworks. I generally use this. I'm also using it in mid-side mode. If you see this, it defaults to that, but I'm boosting high frequencies, which also on the sides, which is bringing out the width as well, on top of the width that I'm already doing here. So I have to be careful with that. So sometimes as I'm adding width later on in the mix, I'm bringing in, I might bring some of the vocals and elements in to kind of compensate for what I'm doing. On the no gates. I generally don't use gates because I can go in. Generally, my mixes, if you look at this session, I hope I didn't get lazy on this. No, I cut out all the dead space anyway, or my assistant Matt does that. That's a peeve. The only thing I don't is this one right here. This is the reverb return of the lead. So I didn't want to. There was a lot of like decay on it, that you could still hear, so I just left that one as is, and usually I do that anyway. But let's look at this again. So anyway, so that's why you'll see some of these get bought out. This is what it sounds like when it's wide. Let me just go to that.
This one's for the woman of the...
So these, just without the EQs, right, and de-essers, this is what it sounded like, and wide. We'll just widen them up real quick.
This one's for the woman of the hour.
And here's with the EQs.
This one's for the woman of the hour.
And this is when I added the...
This one's for the woman of the hour.
And you hear how it comes in more in the middle. A touch of on the left and double checks with phase issues. Yeah, that works too. Again, no rules, man. I mean, I didn't even know that, but now I'm going to try it next time. There's, if you hear it, and I wanted this vocal because it's so raspy and so cool, I wanted it to blend more with the middle as well. So that's one of the reasons, another reason I bought it up. What do you do to get the most depth in a mix such as this one? Man, that's such a hard question to ask because, or to answer, probably easier to ask. It's a combination of reverb, compression, EQ, and panning. I mean, it all works together to get depth. You know what I mean? Even just the, it's, Jesse, it's like, it's really, even that panning that I just showed you, even the panning I showed you is also creating depth because now I'm bringing the vocals in a little bit, and now you're hearing that vocal that was so wide, you're bringing in more into the middle, which somehow will work with another, which will work with another element in the song that might create a certain depth within the mix, if that makes any sense. So it's really hard to answer that. That creating depth, the front to back side of the mix is the hardest thing as a mix engineer to do, and that's what takes the longest, because there's a lot of people that can sit there and make things sound great, but the depth is usually what separates pro quality from prosumer, if that makes sense. How much work is that mid EQ doing? Not crazy. I use this bass shift thing in the middle at 0.3, nothing crazy, and I'm adding nothing else in the middle and just the high end and just the width, and that's it. Sometimes I'll mono out the middle. I usually use Isotope Ozone 9. There's a preset that I don't know if you guys know who Cohen is. He's a mix engineer who did, oh my God, XXX at Tancian and a bunch of other artists. He's one of the dopest guys, and he's a friend of mine, and he actually got me back on the Ozone tip, and I just, it didn't work. Not everything works on every song, but this one, this one just, it didn't, I think I might have taken it out like 50-60% into the mix. What's a good VST to get a vocal in tune? I don't know. To get a vocal in tune, I would just get Melodyne. If you have Logic, the Logic one works great too. Yes, making a mix wider sometimes is bringing elements in, believe it or not. It sounds crazy, but that's pretty much what I'm explaining now, because all of a sudden it sounds full to you, and that perceives it as just being wider. If you listen to guys like Serban, he's the reason I went in the box, but you watch a guy like Serban, you listen to his mixes, if you put them in mono, sometimes the widest things still hold weight in the middle in mono. It's pretty crazy. Using the CLI, I've been worried about cheating. There's no cheating in mixing. There's definitely no cheating in mixing. Did you ever felt that a hook is not as strong as it should be and you couldn't make it? Oh, Mika, hello. Mika is from Argentina, which is where I was born, so hello. And she's a friend of mine. As strong as it should be, you couldn't make it sound as you wanted to, so you told her what this has to say. Yes, I will. Depends on look, that's a good question. Like, she's basically, she's asking, like, if you feel like the chorus wasn't strong enough and you need to, do you feel like you can would you contact the producer, artist, or whoever? There's some artists and clients that do allow you to, give you feedback in that sense, but there's some people that people have been sitting with their songs for so long, and you have to be respectful of that. Sometimes it takes me a second to recognize whether I need to back off and that's what the intention was, but sometimes something just isn't done right. Like recently, I'm mixing a record where I might need them to retrack the acoustic guitars. So I did speak to the manager, and he says, listen, if you need it, we'll be more than happy to do it. That's why we're hiring you. But that all depends on the artist. I'll always be honest with people, and I'll speak my truth, and they can either take it or not. We'll have a conversation. Sometimes they'll give me their point of view, and I'll be like, you know what, you're right, let's keep it as is. And sometimes I feel strongly about it, and we'll debate it, and sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. That's the beauty of music. It's all opinion. Hold on, let me just read some of these, because great questions, everyone. In that vein, do you ever take like adding your own samples to spice up? Yes, I do. I do add kicks and snares sometimes, a lot of times, rather than EQ. And it's actually like producers in the past have said, yo, that's effed up because, but it's not really. You're basically, what I'm saying is like, yo, your kick drum is really dope, and I didn't want to mess with the EQ, but I wanted a little bit more top end to it. And I just decided to add another kick drum to add the top end. And then they're like, wow, it does sound good, So yes, I do take the liberty. If without changing it, I'm not going to change the sound. Like that's not what's going to happen. Let me look, Dave. Let's try. Let's see another. I hope not doing this as a producer. No, it's. I won't change it, Corey. Like there's no changing. Like if it's a changing thing, I will talk to the producer. There's no question if I feel like it. Are you still mixing into a mix bus that already is a lot? Yes, I do. I haven't changed that. Although I'm doing less on the master bus these days, but the earlier processing on the master is usually 2 plugins, and then I tweak it from there. Do you use Soothe, Alexander? I love Soothe. I love those guys. I don't know if I have it on this mix. Sorry, I might have done this mix before I got Soothe. Yeah. So, yeah, I haven't even had Soothe, but I'm up to Soothe 2 now. It's incredible. Yeah, no, you listen, Corey, you always have to respect the producer, man. Like it's a team effort, man. Mixing is not like you're a blue-collared worker here, man, as a mixer. Like your job is to make people like bring their art to life, and they're trusting you with their art. It's art. You know what I mean? So I would never, as personally, I would never do that. For producers who want to engineer their own, honestly, I think you should, hey, Markel, what's up? Um, Honestly, I don't know, man. I think it takes a village. So I think finding a good mix engineer is very important. Everyone could sit there and tweak until their heart's desire and make anything sound good. If you give someone a song and they spend a week on it, they'll make it sound good. But the difference is a good mix engineer is going to come in and make it feel really good. Like they will add that depth that you're not going to get because you're just producing it. Like you'll make it sound good and no question, but there's a reason that A-level artists get their stuff mixed. That's the way I look at it. Hold on. I'm trying to go through it. You guys are asking me really good questions. Hold on. Do you guys just listen to the track to the natural vibe of the vocal or the other way around? Or you used to start with the track. Maybe it's a lot of molding to make the vocal. No, man. Like I don't know if you were here earlier, Alonso, but I start with the drums and the bass, and then I bring the vocal in right away. That's the way I work. So it's early on. Use virtual, like use like a fake amp plugin. That's the thing I would do. I do it with bass a lot. What's the biggest thing you were really proud of in this mix? I love this mix. I was proud of the whole thing. What do I use for drum replacement sounds? So one of my old assistants, who's now one of the dopest engineers in New York, Mike Cuz, and he's also one of the baddest producers. He actually gave me like a bunch of stuff, and my boy Maki. I've even used some of the Slate stuff, but I use the Slate trigger too. That's what I use. I love it. I love the Slate stuff. Vice versa. Is there anything similar to Heat that can be used in Logic Pro? No, there's not. But you can find like really good plugins like the Slate Virtual Mix Bus, the Waves NLS, the Black Box by Plugin Alliance, the Decapitator by Sound Toys. Like those are all really, 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 really awesome plugins. Which leads to a lot of second guessing. How do you decide when you're done? Man, as when you're mixing your own track, you're never going to be done. You know what I mean? And you're so used to it that giving it to somebody else, I've been through it a lot. I never, like artists realize after a while as they become more seasoned, how the importance of a mix engineer is. They realize it, much later, and that's part of the growing process. So it's harder as an artist to say when you're done, because even as a mixer who's spent 1 or 2 days on the song, I have a hard time saying it's over. So, but lately, believe it or not, I'm not even taking it out of the studio and referencing it, and I've I've gotten used to my room. I built this room about 2 years ago, and I'm getting really used to it. I love it. Let me look at some other questions. Producer produces, but you should always get an engineer. It's always good, Axel. You know this. Like, we've talked about this before. Yes, those are NS10s. Those are my love-hate. I have a love-hate. I've been married to NS10s. I have NS10s. I don't know if you guys can see this, but they're on the floor too. In the back, you could see them. But hold on one second. There's so many. But I feel like getting an engineer is like a second perspective, and the right mixer is going to make it that much better. And some of my clients are on here right now that know this, so you guys should like chime in and let them know. At what point should a producer start paying for a mix engineer? Budget is tight. Listen, you could always work it out. If a mixer believes in you, you could always work it out. I've had people approach me with, if you see that they're getting somewhere, like, you can always work something out if it makes sense for both parties. So there's no reason to not reach out to mix engineers. There's so many good mix engineers out there. How many points should a mixing engineer get on a record? Oh man, points come way later on, man. I'm now 43 years old, and I just started getting points like 2 years ago. So honestly, anywhere between, like, you can get anywhere between a point to 5 to 10 points, believe it or not, depending on whether it's major label, if it's an independent artist and they own 100%, asking for 10% as a mixer who's going to be like their go-to person isn't crazy as long as they're independent, Yo, what up, dude? Hold on. Can you please, when you turn on the bass and treble on the CLA? Can you please say why you turn the bass and treble off on CL and you keep CLA verb on while sending to Valhalla too? I don't know. It's just a feeling, Kat. It's just a feeling. I probably don't even remember. I don't even know. I just did it. How much do you tend to EQ in the master bus? Great question, Condi. Let's look. I have the EQ P1A. I'm boosting high, 12. Kind of a wide bandwidth, low. And then I'm doing this. I'm going to tell you guys a secret plugin that nobody's asked me about yet. And it's called the BX Refined by Plugin Alliance. This thing is the baddest. If your mix is a little harsh, they have this preset called Subtle D Harsh, but I tweak it. But what it does is listen to the mix without it.
This one's for the moment of the hour. Plus what tears. I suffer the cost. So let's make it louder. This one's for the moment of the hour. Plus what tears. I suffer the cost.
You can actually dampen some of the harsh frequencies. And also here, there's a saturation knob to add extra saturation. It is a badass plugin. I don't have an endorsement here, but I love their plugins. And this plugin is stellar. I just started using it about 2 months ago by mistake. Let me answer more. Well, I look 33. I appreciate it. I try. It's hours of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. If you're sending out for master, do you keep your master bus plugins on? I keep Ricardo can chime in. Ricardo is on the stream now, but or on the chat. But I do keep everything except for this plugin. So this is without. This is limiter, and here's without. So you could hear the difference. Yeah, see, thanks, Rick. Rick is is the mastering god. Yeah, I mean, I always send him, and I always send him with the limiter, as I said earlier, for some of you that just joined us. I always do the limiter, send it to him so he could understand what everyone was living with. And this limiter in particular, there's the enhance curve for those of you that use the Sony Oxford Inflator. It's the same exact thing, so it adds some saturation. So there's no, I liked what it did. It definitely brought up some stuff on the sides to me and made it a little fuller. So Rick just needed to hear it so he can match that and make it better. Let me see. Yes, we did a lot of experiments for years. Could you explain why you record your mix into the mix instead of bouncing out? I can. Before SonarWorks' last or two updates, I'm sure one of them from SonarWorks is on here. But I used to mess up and print with the plugin a lot. And if you forget to bypass it in your master bus when you're bouncing, you're going to print with that EQ curve. That's not what you should be doing. And I've had clients call me and say, yo, man, version 1 sounds great. Version 2 sounds like ass. Like, what happened? And I'm arguing like it's the same mix. And of course they'll contact me and say, no, man, you need to listen to it. And I'll listen, and I realize that I had the SonarWorks. So really what I do is, this is why I have this monitor thing. So it's printing to here, but then the output is going to a bus, which is called the monitor. And then I can put the SonarWorks, and I could still use the SonarWorks while this track is pre the SonarWorks, so the SonarWorks will not affect it. Now with SonarWorks, it'll actually tell you on Pro Tools, hey, you're about to print with SonarWorks. Do you want to shut it off? Something like that. What's that? Hold on. When you're mixing, you only have an S and EQP on, and then slap on the others when you're done. No, not at all. Just the G bus and the ATR 102. Everything comes in after. When I mix in mono, AJ, I actually, you guys are gonna laugh. You guys want to see? Look, that's my mono, kid. Here, so that's my mono speaker. It's my Bose SoundLink. It's right in front of me, and I pull in mono and I listen low, very low. Or in like this, use on vocal. Hold on. Yeah, Shadow Hills compressor, right. Hold on. There's so many questions. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to get through. I use tape whenever I can, man. Individual. Remember, the heat is on every track, and you could bypass it. Can you talk about some of your reverbs and delays or anything like this you use on vocals? Hi, listen. I don't know if you were here earlier, but a lot of the reverbs are printed, that the producer printed. The only thing I'm using is a plate here and there. This is my favorite plate, the UAD. Shout out to UAD. And the UAD Spring Verb and the Valhalla. That's it for vocals on this. The rest, Dave printed with it, and I loved it. And I even added some to the returns as well. I added some medium haul and plate to what's existing, and EQ. So, I mean, this is all to sculpt the sound and everything. What else? What do you do to address? What do you address after bass and drums? Vocals after bass and drums. Yes. I guess you came a little late. Yes, I always do bass, vocals, bass, drums, vocals, and then I find the main instrument that goes in. No, I tried refinement. It probably would be dope. I've been using Soothe on vocals to get some of that out. Shadow Hills mastering compress. Yeah, people are. Do you approach automation like throws, auto penning in like that in the production? Or sometimes the producers do that. No, I have them do a lot. I want them to give me what they think is done, and then let me do it. It's a team effort, you know. Depends on the song, AJ. This one, not much, because I was able to tame. I did a lot of clip gain in Pro Tools, but you could see here on the all vocal bus, I wrote all the vocals at once towards the end, so you could see that there's automation. The other thing I did is, if you guys look here, look at this. I actually bumped up the master. Let's see. I think it's a dB on the post chorus, half a dB on the post chorus, just to add a little bit of excitement to the song. Usually cut lows, highs on vocal reverb channels. I cut the highs on this one, not the lows. Are you distorting the bass or running the clean and distortion bus parallel, Mark? Here's my bass. That's without the distortion. And listen to it without the distortion.
I'm finally here. Start the applause. Let's make it louder. This one's for the woman of the hour. For the chorus. So let's make it louder. This one's for the woman of the hour.
Hold on. Are you just? Hope that answered it. Let me look at this. What is the best plugin to make a song be very wide? I don't know, man. It all depends. It all depends what you do individually. There's not one better than the other, man. The Waves S1 is good. There's a free one. I don't know if it's free anymore. Is this one here? This one. This one was free a while ago from Infected Mushroom. This thing is awesome. I mean, it is like you can go super wide, but it doesn't do anything to the middle, which is pretty dope. But there's a little plug for you guys. You should sign up for Pro Tools Expert because they always put out free plugins, like Free Plugin Friday or something, and that's where I got it. You approach mixing vocals? How would you approach mixing vocals? Record with a cheaper mic. I would make that vocal work with the song. I'm not sure Prince George is on here, if they're still on, but I've mixed a bunch of records for they're like my illegitimate kids. But Naomi loves using this Audio Technica mic that is about. It's probably like a $400 or $500 mic, and if you guys go to the Sound Toys page, we did a video a while back where we recorded and showed the process of this, and we could have used any microphone worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and she was comfortable with that mic, and it sounded great. And could the other ones have sounded better? I don't know, maybe. But you just make it sound good, man. Engineers make things. Your job is. That's why the title is an engineer. You gotta learn how to fix things and make things happen and work with what you got. Like that's why it's hard to answer what plugins work the best and all that, because it's really your ear. I mean, I could make a record with stock plugins. No big deal. Bump the kicks and how it sounded like almost the camper. It still sound. What did the AT 2020? That's yeah. Oh, it's an $80 mic. Well, go figure. Hold on. Let's get more questions. Is there anything you guys want me to go over real quick? Because I'm not sure. We have maybe 10, 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure is everyone learning something? I hope so. Oh, I didn't answer that. Do you use an analyzer tool? If so, what do you typically look out for? So I do. If you look on my master, I always have it on the track that I print to, but it is Levels by Mastering the Mix. Tom Frampton, who owns this company, I think his plugins are absolutely amazing. The one thing I'm looking out for is I go to whenever I'm mixing, I have it set to mixing loud, and I'm just looking at peak. I'm looking at the stereo field, but I'm using my ears more. The dynamic range, I'm making sure I'm still dynamic, and LUFS. But the LUFS I don't really use until I get to like when I add a limiter. Once I add a limiter, I do mastering crazy loud, and for some reason I still can't get louder than Ricardo. So I'm not a mastering engineer. Actually, I'm not great at mastering. I don't want to be a mastering engineer. But when I get to the loud, the mastering, I do look at LUFS, and I try to hit around -9 LUFS, somewhere around there. I don't want to get distorted. Rick's been sometimes telling me that my rough, my limiter version may be sucking out dynamics. That's why when I get back from him what he mastered, it just sounds so much better. I mean, I'm doing it for the client. But it's great. It's like $50. You guys should definitely go support Tom, because and I use his reference plugin, which is the best reference plugin on the market. I don't care what anyone says. It's this one right here. I love this. I can set up the volumes to match. I can mirror the rough mix. All of that. So it's that's what I'm doing. Hold on. Do you keep kick and bass in their own lane, so to speak? I heard this from a New York City mixer. Yeah, this mixer. Yeah, I do. I keep them in their same space. They need to they need to live together somehow. How do you find the tempo of a track? Man, mixed in key. I also know how to like create a tempo map in Pro Tools, so sometimes I do that if I want to get more fine. Let's see. It depends, Lisa, on the song itself. Like, it depends if it's trap, if it's deep house, if it's you got to decide what's the most important. Tom Frampton, Mastering the Mix is the company. What else? How do you find? I want to make sure everybody. Yeah. Let's see. Warm and fuzzy. Thanks so much for doing this. It's been awesome. Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. This was great. I'm overwhelmed by how many people came on here to watch me. Can you go over your basic through process for EQing vocals? Honestly, so that's a great question, Dylan. The basic for EQing vocal is first I get rid of all the stuff on the low end. And on this particular, like, let's just start at the top, right? I'm getting rid of everything below 60 or 70 in this, and I'm adding a little high end, and I'm actually adding a little bit of body at 309. Like, there's really no rhyme or reason. But that's why I put the vocal in earlier, because I can add more frequencies. The later you bring in the vocal, the more you're going to be, in my opinion, working backwards by now thinking like, oh my God, the piano is conflicting with the vocal, but the vocal doesn't fit in. So let's take off some lows from the piano, but then you go back and realize that earlier on your piano sounded great. So that's why I put the vocal in right away, because I can add more frequencies into it and make it really stand out. I add a 2-bus late in the game, probably when I'm 70% in. I bought mixed in key a few weeks ago. Also, you don't play any instruments. Yeah, I don't. I just use it for tempo, and also for finding the key. Tough one. What is something you feel like you learned or really improved in over the last year? My mid-range has improved tremendously. The hardest thing to mix, to get right, is I appreciate that. The hardest thing is getting the mid-range not to sound grainy and nasty. And it should just cut through speakers well, and that's really the important thing. I've learned a lot about that in the past year, and I've learned a lot about something I started doing after this mix was parallel processing and using it to fill in the middle. That'll be another masterclass. We'll go one day. I'll do one about that. That's a whole nother thing that I kind of discovered by making a mistake. That I was trying the Michael Brower method just as a test, and I somehow turned his bus processing into just parallel processors, where I'm using it to, like, if things are too wide, I might put the send level feeding the parallel chain, and I'll bring in just the panning in the sends to put things more in the middle. Just things like that, really cool stuff. How do you convert MIDI in 1990 for Pro Tools 3? I have no idea, man. I mean, I'm old, but not. I don't know. How early do you add in saturation plugins? Right away, my man. Early, like sound is saturation. More questions. There's 139 people, and not one person has asked. There's got to be more questions. We have a few minutes left. I'll stay on a few minutes if the questions keep coming. Did you cover your heat settings, dive and tone, pre versus post? I came on, I missed it. Yeah, I didn't really go over it too much, but if you, I'll make it simple. If you drive the tone, I never mess with. For some reason, it doesn't work. It's always the drive. If you push more to the right, you'll get the lower harmonics and you'll get more bass. And if you move it to the left, the drive, you get more of the mid and the higher harmonics. I tend to go to the right more. What's your approach to handling the low end? From the beginning, I start playing with low end. I have my low end within like the first hour. Low end's the hardest. Once I get the low end, everything falls in place. As a pre-effect. No, I don't, Dan. Favorite monitors? So I'm using the NS10s as I've been using them for years. I have 3 pairs of NS10s. And 2 Bryson 4B STs. One is a backup. That's my main. I've now been using the Cali Audios for a few months. They sent me both the LP6s and 8s. Big shout out to them, to Destin Bennett, who linked me with them. Man, for the price, they're really dope. I should be receiving the head HEDD speakers from the owner, Freddie. He's sending me a pair of the Type 20s, which are stellar. I heard him at NAMM 2 years ago, and I was floored. So I should be receiving them and giving them a whirl. But right now, these Cali Audios are incredible, especially with the SonarWorks and in my room. But the NS10s are my go-to. Hold on. There's a lot of questions now. What's your approach? Have you ever used Impulse for DI acoustic guitar? No, maybe I have. I don't know. I mean, usually just reverbs. Favorite headphones? The Audio-Technica M50Xs. What's your headphone monitor split look like? My headphone is going directly to the front. I use a Dangerous Monitor ST. And it's going to the front of that, so I'm getting the Dangerous sound. Any advice for engineers trying to break into the bigger music world once they start getting decent credits under their belt? It is a tortoise's game. Like, I can't begin to tell you. I just want to put into perspective that I started in the business when I was 18 years old. Was my first internship while I was going to recording school. And by 20 years old, I was assisting and couldn't buy liquor yet for clients when I had to go on runs. So I started mixing in my 20s, and now I'm 43, and I've finally been able to make a living the last 10 years, So it takes a long time. And honestly, it's grassroots. It's word of mouth, and that's really how you build your business. Word of mouth is the best, and treating people with respect and uh, knowing how to deal with clients. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you, is just to stick with it. I know that sounds very cliche, but like, I'm living proof of that, you know? Oh my God, there's so many questions. I'm trying to get to them. Hold on. You have to be the most. I'm not sure. Thanks for sharing. Loudness, I leave it up to the mastering engineer. Ricardo can chime in on that. He's on here. Who don't have great monitor mixing on headphones. Yeah, if you're a bedroom producer, like, get the Sonar Works to start off and start slowly treating your room. You can do it with blankets. Honestly, it's better than nothing. The room doesn't have to look pretty, especially if you're using your bedroom as like a mixing room. You know, like, I don't know, if you have a hot date, then you can clean up your acoustics. I use some headphones as you, but since I got focus, it changed my gang. Can hear everything now. I wonder how much you go back and forth between phones. I don't know. I know my speakers well, Lisa, so I don't know. For me, I know what my room sounds like. It's really, once you know your headphones, your speakers, your room, then there's no need to do too much. You just know them. Versus volume, two different things. Sidechain compression versus volume automation, two different things. One, it's apples and oranges. It depends on the song. It depends what I'm trying to do. Can you give us the multi-tracks? I can't do that, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. But in the future, if I do more of these, I will get permission to possibly do that. You find by producers below pro level. Common mistake you find in tracks sent by producers below pro level. Printing too hot. If your mix, guys, if you ever send your tracks out to mixers, import them into a session. Your file, those files should sound like what your rough mix is. That's always, and your time. Tyler, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming. But there's a lot of track. What's your approach to bus and routing? My approach to bus and routing: bass, all the basses to a bass bus, all the drums to a drum bus, all groups of instruments to a bus, then all those buses to an instrument aux, which feeds the master, and same thing for vocals. Yes, I do surgical EQ a lot, AJ. Thank you so much. No doubt. This has been dope. Yes, thank you. Do you have a template? I do. I just import the master stuff, and the returns are blank, the reverb returns, and I add because I like to be creative, so I never have like a set reverb or anything. Have any live mixing experience or tips? Have any live mixing? Yes, be careful with feedback when you're mixing live. It's different. Thanks for getting some knowledge on these. Oh, yeah, I hope everybody's staying safe. I know these are like super weird times, but I'm an optimist, and I think that like the world's gonna be better after this. I really do. It seems like people are way cooler, and I know everything's effed up right now, but everyone keep your head up and just keep doing what you're doing, and make more music. You know what I mean? No, my pleasure. Hold on. Do you ever set your reverbs up by frequency range? Never, man. I just use my I just use my ears, man. Dan, you've watched me mix, man. Come on. You're asking me some silly stuff now. You know my tricks. More questions. I'll stay on for another 5 minutes if you guys have questions. What's the most unusual genre you've mixed? How do you feel? How did you I don't know about genre, man, but sometimes you get records and you're just like, people are like, yo, everybody loves this record, and you hear the record and you're just like, nobody loves it. People are lying to you. They're making you feel really good right now. I wouldn't say unusual genre. I mix like different genres. Like, I mean, one of the bands I've been working with for a long time is a Celtic rock band who I'm friends with. They're out in France. They're, a pretty successful band, and I don't listen to, Celtic music until I met them, and now I co-produced the last album. I've mixed all their albums. Oh, no doubt, Becky. That's cool. How do you deal with Foley sound effects and field recordings? Are they the No, I don't ever get Foley stuff, but sound effects I put like whooshes and white noise and stuff like that. I put on a bus. Yes. Any tips for mixing live recording? I only used a room mic for the take. Oof, that's tough, man. You can't do too much. Thanks. It's much appreciated. No doubt, John. Thank you for coming, man. Is this? Yeah. Okay. Where can I find free multi-tracks for practicing mixing? And also, how do you train your ear? Practice. That's how you train your ear. Practice. That's what takes the longest. That's why there's no tricks to any of this, man. There's no secrets. It's just practice, practice, practice. I love teaching. I love giving people advice. So, I'm definitely like, and that's the one thing I tell people. It's just practice. It won't come overnight. Do you have an approach to know whether your vocal is too loud or too quiet? Yes. Listen low at low volumes. If you can hear the lyric, you're good. If you can't hear the lyric, you're too low. When you listen loud and you set your vocal level, it's always going to be good. Man, there's so many, AJ. I love Graham Cochran at the Recording Revolution. I've been listening to this guy, watching Sean Devine, who does everything in Pro Tools. Logic. I'm sorry about that. There's so many good videos out there. The mix with the master stuff is dope. Have you mixed reggaeton or songs? What's your process? Same process for every song. Nothing is different. I try to feel what the song is, and I let the song dictate what I need to do. What dB? About 70 to 80, sometimes lower. Do you use reference tracks all the time? I have Tidal set up at high quality, so it's full 24-bit, and I could reference on a secondary input. Thanks for this. Is there anything extra that can do while delivering stems to make things easier on the mixer? Make sure it sounds like your mix. That's it. That's the most important thing, at least for me. And guys, like seriously, like also, follow me. I'm going to start putting out more tips out there, on my Instagram. So definitely follow me. That we haven't asked. What's the one question you want to answer that we haven't asked? I don't know. I don't know. Ask me anything. I don't know. Anything within. Let's be fair about it. Any issues managing CPU sort of when your plugin count gets high? Yeah, print with the just commit, freeze, commit. Who else do you recommend we follow? There's so many people out there. Follow Ricardo Mastering. He's the man. This is great getting there. Yeah, Axel. That's right. Any questions? Any more? Hey man, do you fix phase issue? I'm having trouble with wide sounds. Are they being canceled? They are being. Oh, I went over that. Bring in your stereo. Bring in the panning. What's a lifestyle of a mix engineer? Seltzer. I don't know. I have no idea. Like we definitely. It's a tough business, but you got to do it for the love. And I've been blessed to be able to do this for so many years, and I just feel like it's because you just, it's how you treat people and good karma. When you're a good person, good things happen to you. Doing bass and snare. Thought process depends on the song. Sometimes you're giving stuff. Know when. What I learned. Here's a question. Like, what would you tell? What would I do? What do I do now that's different than before? Earlier in my career, I was learning what to do. Now I'm learning what not to do. That you generally runs on vocals. Usually EQ first or de-esser. To use as a small analog mixer for what? If you're summing, you could get a good summing box. When you started mixing, how much did you charge? $150 a mix. That was 20 years ago. No, I think analog. Analog is there's no argument there. You can't. You could get one if you want, but really, like, you could make in the box sound just as good. Any auto tune? I don't know. I have not. I don't really have an opinion on auto tune these days. How much do you charge now? I mean, you could hit me up on Instagram. What de-esser do you use? I use the Waves regular de-esser. I'm used to it. I love it. It's simple and that's it. Not the R de-esser, the regular de-esser. All right. I think that's going to be it for me. I want to thank Max and everyone at 343, Thomas for having my back here tonight. Guys, this was really awesome. I was overwhelmed by the response. This was awesome. AJ, thank you for coming. And I hope to do more of these soon. Look out. I will definitely be doing more of these. And we'll get Ricardo to do some as well. If anyone has any additional questions, seriously, I am so accessible. Hit me up on Instagram. You could find my email as well. It's Ariel, Ariel, at arielborujow.com. I'll post it on here real quick. You can email me. I love doing this kind of stuff. And of course, like, show everyone at 343 love. They got a great thing going on. I'm a big fan. I know the guys there. They're great teachers. They know what's up. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone got a chance to learn something. And I'll see you guys soon. All right. Peace.